Picture this, you are such a nice guy that you've spent the last 10 years telling everyone on tracks that you are the best rapper in the game, only for your counterpart Kendrick Lamar to come in and say that you're not even top 3 in the game. Then you proceed to respond to your counterpart, but you feel so bad that you issue an apology and take down your response 2 days after releasing it, only to get dissed even harder by one of your former idols, Kanye West, who says any guy that listens to you does not get women. Guys, this has got to be a joke. I mean, J. Cole, in the span of 2 weeks, has become the laughingstock of the rap game. And it's honestly very sad, but we're not going to really touch on him, no Diddy, until he drops his album, The Fall Off. But we are going to focus on Kanye West's diss track today, alright guys? Because yesterday, Kanye West dropped a remix to Metro Boomin, Future, and Kendrick Lamar's song, Like That, where he is going in on J. Cole and Drake, alright? He is coming with some serious bars, and it's pretty hilarious to me because if there's one person to throw themselves in a beef that they had no involvement in, of course it's Kanye West, right? Kanye West, while he is a musical genius, while he has said some pretty revolutionary stuff in the last 10 years. Of course, I'm not referring to his Alex Jones interview, but this guy has made some pretty revolutionary music and, does some cool things in the fashion industry as well, right? But honestly, this might be a hot take, or it might not. But to me, Kanye West has just fallen off, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's put out some decent music here and there. Like, I like some of the songs off of Vultures and Donda as well. Off the Grid, super hard song, no Diddy. However, in the last, let's say 5-ish years, since he started taunting Drake in 2018 with that Lift Yourself verse, his antics and his attention seeking far outweigh the attention he's gotten from his music, or even the focus he's put on his music. Now, let me kind of break this down, right? Kanye has, believe it or not, actually been the most active in terms of musical output that he's ever been in his entire career in the last 5 years. Since 2018, he's put out 4 or 5 albums, a combined total of probably 120 tracks. He's never put out so much music in such a short time span. But in my opinion, with each album, the quality just keeps going down. And aside from Kids See Ghosts or a couple tracks off of Donda, there's just nothing groundbreaking to his music. Whereas he's been much more known for going off on Twitter or Instagram on, Pete Davidson, or on, a certain religious group that we're not going to name, or Drake. It seems like he's more focused on spazzing out on social media at certain people than he is on actually creating solid bodies of work. And his new verse on this Like That remix is no different. Let's be real here. This verse sucks. There's nothing redeemable here. I mean, he hits a nice little flow in the middle that kind of sounds a little bouncy, sounds a little catchy, but he's not saying anything that adds any sort of substance to this beef. At least when Rick Ross kind of jumped in, he brought a more comedic element to it when he was calling out Drake for having a nose job, or, going off on Drake on Instagram. The only thing Kanye said that is any sort of valid jab here is that Drake, in order to get his masters back, signed away a lifetime deal with Universal Music Group, which was actually kind of a clever bar, but really this just seems like a cheap attempt to put the attention onto him, to bring himself into this beef, and there's just no reason for it, right? And this is just a common pattern with what Kanye's been doing in the last almost 10 years now. We've seen this all before with Drake, right? He was beefing Pusha T. Kanye comes in and starts trolling him by promising to give him that Lift Yourself beat. Then he ends up just recording some deranged vocals on top of it to troll Drake. Then he goes off on Drake on Twitter. Then he apologizes to Drake and constantly glazes him in interviews, saying he's the best rapper of all time. They proceed to do a reunion concert together, and then Kanye is just back dissing him a year later. Then he promises to release Donda 2, and instead of actually putting it out on streaming platforms, he puts out a half-finished version on this stem player, which is an MP3 player, and he overshadows his entire album release with crazy rants against Pete Davidson, since at the time Pete Davidson was sleeping with his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian. Then he tries running for president with no real plan of changes he actually wants to implement. Have you ever seen someone try to run for president in such a half-assed way as Kanye West did? I don't think it's ever existed in history. And it seems like everything he does these days is half-assed. Even when he became all religious and released a gospel album, he put out Jesus is King. That seemed half-assed. He put out those, 7-track albums with Nas and with Pusha T and Tiana Taylor. And besides the one with Pusha T, they all seemed half-assed. And it seemed like he was more focused on beefing with Drake than finishing those albums. And he's kept scrapping them and redoing them. Then he's putting out hoodies that look like KKK costumes. Then he went on his crazy rant about Jewish people. I mean, can someone explain to me why he is so derangedly obsessed with Drake? He's literally openly stating in an interview that he's calling for the extinction of this man's career. Like, he's trying to expel him from the industry. Like, what could Drake have done that's so bad that Kanye wants to destroy him like this? The only thing I could think of is Drake slept with Kim Kardashian. Drake slept with Kim Kardashian, and Kanye can never live that down. And now they're split up, and he'll never know, what exactly happened. And I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me, because why else can he get so jealous over another artist? It's not like Drake hasn't told Kanye millions of times before how influential Kanye was to his career. Drake has said there would be no Drake without Kanye West. So you know that you influenced this guy's entire career. You're the reason why he's as big as he is today. You gave him that platform initially. And you've had just as much mainstream success as him, and arguably you've earned more money than him through all your sneaker deals and endorsement deals and fashion deals and everything like that. So you've earned more money than him. You've had the same commercial success as him in hip-hop. You've probably been with the same women as him. You're praised a lot more than he is, and you're regarded as a much more revolutionary artist than Drake is. Drake gets a lot of flack for being a culture vulture, whatever. You don't get that. You sample people all the time. You use people for features, whatever. No one calls you no culture vulture. Drake is constantly called a culture vulture when he collaborates with people outside of the genre of hip-hop. And even when it is inside the genre of hip-hop, he's still called a leech. You don't get that type of treatment. So what possibly has made you so jealous of this man's career and just this man as a person that you want to have this guy extinct by any means necessary? Like, if you go back and look at the last, I'd say almost 10 years at this point, you could see that Kanye has been derangedly obsessed with Drake in a very, very weird way. Now, he's also been derangedly obsessed with Jewish people in general, and has went on rants for months at a time where all he's talking about is how Jews control the world and Jews are evil and whatever. We're not going to get into that much, but it just seems like this guy gets weirdly obsessed and weirdly fixated on entities or individuals, and has to kind of create this whole narrative and make it seem like they need to be taken down, right? Like, why does Drake need to be taken down exactly? Like, I understand from Kendrick's perspective, right? Kendrick wants to be the top rapper. Drake, from a commercial standpoint, is the top rapper. Like, in order to be looked at as the top guy, you got to come for the top guy. That makes sense. But Kanye doesn't seem to be focused on music. Kanye's motive also, from what he said, doesn't seem to be focused on women. It's not a fight about women like Future's beef with Drake is about. But we've never gotten a clear reason why these two guys dislike each other so much. And for the last 8 to 10 years, Kanye has just went on record praising Drake for being like the greatest artist of all time. Like, loves Drake's music, has literally gone on wax and said Drake is like the best rapper ever. But at the same time, simultaneously wants to destroy this guy and becomes friends with him, but then shits on him weeks later. He's been doing this for years, trolling him, criticizing him in interviews, but then praising him months later. I'm not saying Drake's perfect in this, but it just seems like Kanye is almost bored with his time and would rather resort to hating on Drake and tearing him down instead of focusing on bettering his own music. Like, if he put the energy that he put into shitting on Drake or shitting on Pete Davidson or shitting on Jewish people or harassing Kim Kardashian online or trying to run for president without having any sort of real campaign or direction, if he put half of that effort into making better albums, we would have like 7 dark, twisted fantasies right now. We would have 7 college dropouts, 7 graduations, if this guy just put half the time he focuses on bullshit and antics into music. And it's crazy because you could tell he's so passionate, and he is quite forward thinking in a lot of ways, 100%. But he doesn't direct his energy towards positive things. And even when he does, like when he went on his religious path, he still didn't direct his energy towards positive things. He made a terrible album. He made arguably the worst album of his career right after he found God, quote unquote. And now he's going on interviews and saying that, Jesus wasn't there for him when he went on his anti-Semitic rants. And so he doesn't believe in Jesus as much as he used to. Like, he's just back and forth. He's all over the place. He's always been all over the place, but it seems like his focus is directed towards negativity. And it's just crazy to me that if he put half the amount of time that he put on hating on Drake into making another college dropout, we would have like 7 college dropouts right now. Like, that's what's so frustrating. And it's crazy because sometimes he'll take his anger and his frustration on the industry out into the music on verses like he had on Burn on his new Vultures album. And that was like one of the best verses we've heard from him in years. But it's like, why can't he do that with every verse? Why can't he take these stupid rants about Drake or about religion or about Adidas or whatever the hell he's mad about today? Take that and put it into the bars, put it into the music, make good music again, man. And I know it's subjective, and I know Kanye fans will probably tell me I'm tripping, like he still makes great music. Like, be as delusional as you want. If you took a person from 2007 and put them in a time machine to 2024 and told them to listen to this Kanye album that just came out, they would tell you this is hot trash compared to whatever was released at the time. Graduation is what I think he put out in 2007. You took a person from 2007, you put them into 2024, you told them to listen to Vultures 1, and the last piece of work that they heard from Kanye West was Graduation. They wouldn't even be able to tell you that it's the same person. He fell off. That's it. End of discussion. I'm sorry. And honestly, if he's not putting out quality music, in my opinion, we shouldn't give him a platform to be able to speak on shit. His opinion shouldn't be validated. We should look at this guy as a loser who fell off, who's delusional. We shouldn't put any sort of merit or credit into what he says. And honestly, I'm just here for the music. Like, he could talk as much shit as he wants, but I'm just tired of always seeing him on interviews, always seeing him in the news talking about some nonsense, and then it being backed up by garbage music. When he was going off on Pete Davidson and he was going off on Kim when he was divorcing her, all over Instagram, shitting on Pete Davidson, getting into fights with him every day. What did we get with that? We got Donda 2. Go back and listen to Donda 2. Go listen to how terrible that was. My whole thing is, be as angry as you want, be as frustrated, go as crazy as you want on whoever you want, but back it up with good music, or else why should we give you any attention? If you're not bringing anything positive to the culture, which in your case it would be nice clothes, good shoes, and great music. If you're not bringing that, and your music sounds unfinished, it sounds lazy, the bars are terrible, you're yelling, big booty women don't fall out of the sky, like if that's the type of product you're giving us, I don't think your opinion should be validated. We shouldn't give you the attention that you're getting right now. You don't deserve it because you're not bringing enough positivity or enough good quality music to the culture. When Kanye first came out, it seemed like everything he was doing was extremely calculated. Everything from the College Dropout all the way up until about Yeezus. Every move was calculated. Every album was calculated. There was quality in everything. Nothing was scattered. Nothing was all over the place. And he kind of ditched that approach once he put out Yeezus. You could tell that he was going for a more stripped back album with less structure that didn't conform to the normal boundaries of an album. Everything from the album cover to the sequencing of the album to the subject matter in the album seemed like he was almost not trying on purpose, but it still kind of came out cool. Same thing with Life of Pablo. It was kind of scattered and all over the place. But it seems like with every release, he just gets less and less invested in the final product and more invested in how he could seek the most attention possible. And this video isn't really about anything in particular. It's not necessarily about the diss. It's more just to touch on the fact that, with Kanye having one of his most successful years in the past decade, honestly, he got his first #1 hit in like 10 years. He had a #1 album with Vultures. He made probably the greatest comeback of all time by getting blackballed by music executives, fashion executives, CEOs for, all of the comments he made about Jewish people, to now coming back with a #1 album, #1 single. Like, that's a pretty phenomenal comeback. And with all that, that still hasn't motivated him to focus on creating better quality music. No, instead, it's motivated him to dive into a beef that he has no involvement in and come out the gate and diss, J. Cole and Drake for no real reason other than just wanting to seek attention and be part of this little hip-hop civil war. It is kind of funny at the beginning of the song, he says, yo, K-Dot, I got you, as if like Kendrick is like waiting on him to come and save the day against Drake and J. Cole, as if Kendrick needs his help to fight these guys off. And I mean, I don't know, in my opinion, like as the years go by, to me, it just seems like he's become less and less in touch with reality and a little bit more delusional. Now, I know he's always kind of been in his own world and done things his own way and never put any boundaries on himself. But again, I'm just emphasizing here, to me, the last few years have seemed like they've been less focused on creating quality bodies of work, whether that's, albums, whether that's tours or fashion, sneakers, clothing, whatever the case is, and more focused on creating moments and not positive moments. Very weird, often negative moments where you're bullying a group of people or a specific individual and just trying to gain attention from the general public. Now, I'm not for cancel culture. I don't think, he should have been canceled. Even when he started going at Jewish people, I think we could separate the art from the artist. But when the art starts to lack the quality that your old material had, or at least a certain standard that we expect from you. And anytime we hear about you, it's just to see some stupid trolling that you're doing. Like, how much longer are we going to keep you on this pedestal for? And something that I think is interesting about this entire hip-hop beef between Kendrick and Drake and Cole and Rick Ross and all these guys is when we're going to have to rebuild from here, right? Because tons of relationships have probably been forever squandered between Drake and other rappers in the game. And like Metro Boomin said, like, these rappers, they got to kind of pick a side in this whole thing, right? So it's just going to be interesting to see, once this beef is done, what direction hip-hop goes in. If Kendrick beats Drake in terms of public perception, will he be that top rapper in the game? Will he be the one having the most amount of hits? Will mainstream hip-hop kind of shift to, appreciate lyricism more than just, catchy hits? Like, once the dust settles in this entire beef, I'm curious how it'll affect all these guys. But ultimately, I say all this to say, for me at least, and I think this will eventually, sooner rather than later, become pretty common public perception. I think people are tired of Kanye West's trolling and his gimmicks and his, attention-seeking tactics. And unless these, next few releases from him in the Vulture series prove to be, higher quality than the first one, or if not, as high quality, and he focuses more on the music and less on the gimmicks, he'll always have his core fan base. But I think as the tides turn in hip-hop, if guys like Kendrick Lamar can become more active in the game, I just think and I hope that, hip-hop will be more focused on the music and less on the gimmicks. And that's what I think Kanye's biggest problem is right now, is he's focusing too much on the gimmicks and not focusing enough on the quality of the music. And I think this beef is just making the tides kind of turn. Like, the last time we saw a #1 hip hop hit last for this long on the charts was in 2020. That was 4 years ago. So Kendrick's bringing back the spirit of hip hop and making people focus on what's most important, which is the bars. Whereas Kanye is focusing more on the antics. And I think that as this beef progresses, the tides will turn and people will want to go back to the essence of what hip-hop is, just the music and not the bullshit and the drama and the trolling. What do you guys think? Do you think this whole beef will change the soundscape of hip-hop, or do you think with guys like 6ix9ine, Lil Pump, or even Kanye, because his behavior is very similar to those guys in terms of his online antics, not obviously the quality of his music, but how he behaves online. It's very similar to guys like 6ix9ine or Lil Pump. Do you think that hip-hop's heading more in that direction, or do you think with the emergence of this beef and, the top rappers kind of going head to head, do you think we'll be more inclined to start focusing back on the bars and the lyrics rather than the antics and the trolling? Let me know in the comments.